Good day. This is the Corrupt True Crime Podcast, and I'm Charlie Cruz. Today's episode is about a daring art theft that stripped a museum of masterpieces by Renoir, Matisse, and Cezanne in just 180 seconds. The alarm screams through the villa at 2:30 in the morning. Security cameras catch 4 hooded figures sprinting through the French gardens of the Magnani Rocca Foundation, carrying what looks like rolled canvases under their arms. By the time the Carabinieri arrive, the thieves are gone, and so are 3 paintings by Renoir, Cezanne, and Matisse. Total value? Somewhere between 9 and 20 million euros, depending on who you ask. Total time to pull it off? Less than 3 minutes. Now, you've got to understand something about art heists. The ones that actually work aren't the elaborate Ocean's 11 fantasies with laser grids and fake security guards. They're fast, intense, and over before anyone can react. This crew knew exactly what they were doing. The question is, how did they plan something this precise? And more importantly, where are those paintings now? Let's talk about what they were after. The Magnani Rocca Foundation sits about 20 kilometers outside Parma, in the Italian countryside, a neo-classical villa surrounded by romantic parkland, exotic plants, and white peacocks wandering the grounds like something out of a symbolist painting. It's not your typical museum. This place was the private collection of Luigi Magnani, a music critic and collector who died back in the 80s, and the foundations kept everything exactly as he arranged it. Empire furniture, a massive malachite cup, and walls covered with Dürer, Rubens, Goya, Monet, Tiziano, about 50 works by Giorgio Morandi alone. But here's what made it a target tucked away on the upper floor, in what they call the Sala dei Francesi, the French room, was one of the few permanent collections of French Impressionist works open to the public in Italy. The 3 paintings they grabbed weren't the most famous pieces in art history, but they were worth a fortune. First, Renoir's Les Poissons, the fish painted just before he died. Oil on canvas, about 16 by 20 inches. Then, Cezanne's Still Life with Cherries, a watercolor and pencil piece from around 1890. And here's the thing about that Cezanne, it's one of the very few works by the master of Aix-en-Provence in any permanent Italian collection. Rare doesn't begin to cover it. Finally, Matisse's Odalisque on the Terrace, an aqua tint print from the 20s. Now, Italian art historian Claudio Stranati later called these minor works from the 3 masters, which is a bit like saying a minor Picasso isn't worth stealing. But check this out, the thieves left behind a 4th painting. Another Renoir, Paysage de Cagnes, was apparently part of their plan, but they abandoned it during the escape, which tells you something went wrong. Here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't some smash and grab by amateurs who saw a documentary and got ideas. The Foundation's statement described it as a structured and organized gang with evident planned functional division of serious illegal conduct. Translation. These were professionals with specific roles, working from a blueprint. They'd done their homework. They knew the villa's layout, knew which room held the French masters, knew how to force the entrance door without triggering immediate response. They moved through that building like they'd rehearsed it. And the timing less than 3 minutes from breach to escape, that's not luck. That's military precision. Think about what has to happen in 3 minutes. You force a door, which immediately starts a clock ticking because alarms exist. You navigate through a villa you've presumably never been inside legally. Find the stairs, locate the French room on the upper floor, identify the correct paintings, not just any paintings, but specific pre-selected targets, remove them from the walls without damaging the canvases, and get out through the gardens before security or police arrive. Most people can't make a sandwich in 3 minutes. These guys pulled off a multi-million euro heist. The night of March 22nd into the 23rd, they made their move. Multiple hooded figures, caught on surveillance cameras, forced open the main entrance. The alarm system activated immediately, which means the Foundation's security wasn't asleep at the wheel. But here's the harsh reality of art theft. Alarms don't stop determined criminals. They just start a countdown. The thieves went straight for the Sala dei Francesi. They knew exactly what they wanted. Renoir's fish, Cezanne's cherries, Matisse's odalisque. They pulled them off the walls, and here's where we get into the fascinating bit. Initially, security thought only the Renoir was missing. It took about 2 hours before investigators realized the full scope. 3 paintings, not 1, which suggests either the thieves were incredibly neat about it, or there was confusion in those first chaotic moments after the breach.
Building a new product? Temez Labs takes you from napkin sketch to the App Store. Trusted by Fortune 500s for quality, security, and speed. Book your free strategy session at temez.ai.
Then they ran, out through the gardens, those romantic grounds with the exotic plants and peacocks, into the Italian countryside. By the time the Carabinieri arrived, they were ghosts, and they left behind almost no evidence except surveillance footage of hooded figures and one abandoned Renoir they didn't have time to grab. That fourth painting tells us something crucial. The alarm did its job, not in stopping them, but in forcing them to cut their plan short. They'd come for 4 paintings and left with 3 because the clock ran out. Now, here's what you've got to understand about stolen art of this caliber. There are basically 3 scenarios. First, commissioned theft. Some unscrupulous collector with more money than morality puts in an order, and professional thieves fulfill it like they're shopping at Harrods. Second, ransom. The thieves don't actually want to own a Cezanne watercolor they can never display or sell openly. They want to extort the foundation or the insurance company for its return. Claudio Strinati suggested this possibility, noting that art thefts can indeed be carried out for the purpose of extortion. Third, the black market's a shadowy network of dealers who move stolen art through a pipeline of increasingly dodgy transactions until it ends up in some oligarch's private vault where no one will ever see it again. The problem with all 3 scenarios? These paintings are now radioactive. The theft made international news within a week. Every legitimate dealer, auction house, and collector knows these works are stolen. Interpol's got them flagged. The Carabinieri's Cultural Heritage Protection Unit. Italy's Specialized Art Crimes Division is on the case. These aren't paintings you can just roll up to Christie's with. They're too recognizable, too hot, too documented, which means whoever took them either already had a buyer lined up, or they're planning to sit on them for years, maybe decades, waiting for the heat to die down. And here's where the story gets murky, because we're now weeks out from the theft, and the public knows almost nothing about the investigation. The foundation released a statement thanking their internal security, the Carabinieri, and the Surveillance Institute for their courage and promptness, but cited peremptory restrictions imposed by investigators as the reason they couldn't say more, which is Italian for, the cops told us to shut up because we're in the middle of an active investigation. No arrests announced, no suspects named, no recovered paintings. What we do know is that surveillance footage exists. Multiple cameras caught those hooded figures. The Carabinieri of Parma are working with the Cultural Heritage Protection Unit, which is actually one of the world's premier art crime divisions. These aren't local cops trying to solve a museum heist with no experience. These are specialists who've recovered countless stolen works, who understand the international networks, who know how to trace art through the black market. They're analyzing that footage, frame by frame. They're checking for vehicles in the area, interviewing staff, examining whether anyone with inside knowledge of the villa's layout might have been involved. Because here's the thing, 3 minutes is impressive, but it's only possible with intelligence. Someone knew that building. The foundation itself is caught in an impossible position. They've lost 3 irreplaceable works from their collection pieces that Luigi Magnani spent decades acquiring, that represented some of the only French Impressionist works permanently displayed in Italy. The cultural loss is immeasurable, but they can't talk about it publicly without potentially compromising the investigation. They can't reassure their donors, can't fully explain to the public what happened, can't even confirm basic details without the Carabinieri's approval. They're victims, but they're also witnesses, and in an active investigation, witnesses don't get to tell their story until the police say so. Meanwhile, those 3 paintings are somewhere. In a warehouse, a private vault, a storage unit, the back of a truck. Or maybe they're already in the hands of whoever commissioned the theft, hanging in some climate-controlled basement gallery where no one but the owner will ever see them again. That's the tragedy of art theft. It's not just about the monetary value. It's about removing works from the public trust, from scholarship, from the cultural heritage they're meant to represent. Magnani collected these pieces so they could be shared, studied, appreciated. Now they're contraband. Here's what happens next. If this was a ransom play, demands will come. Could be weeks, could be months, but eventually someone will reach out, probably through intermediaries, probably with proof they have the paintings, and negotiations will begin. Insurance companies have people who specialize in this, and there's a whole shadow economy of art recovery that operates in legal gray areas. If it's a commission theft, those paintings are already gone, and recovery becomes exponentially harder. The best hope then is that the buyer eventually tries to legitimize their acquisition, or that they get caught in an unrelated investigation and the art gets discovered. If it's destined for the black market, the Cultural Heritage Protection Unit will be monitoring known dealers, watching for any whisper of these specific works changing hands.
Oh, hey, friend. Do you like what you're hearing? Now you can have a ridiculously amazing podcast, too. Check out holler.studio to get yourself one today.
The foundation has closed ranks, understandably. The investigation continues, and somewhere, 4 thieves who pulled off a 3-minute heist are either counting their money, waiting for their payday, or looking over their shoulders wondering when the knock on the door is coming. Because here's the thing about art theft, the success rate for actually getting away with it is poor. Sure, you can steal the paintings. That's the easy part, relatively speaking. But then what? You're holding stolen property worth millions that you can't sell, can't display, can't do anything with except hide. You've committed a serious crime with international implications, and every art crime unit in Europe is looking for you. The Magnani Rocca Foundation will recover from this, though the scars will remain. They'll upgrade security, inevitably. Maybe add more cameras, more sophisticated alarm systems, maybe even physical barriers that make 3-minute heists impossible. But every security upgrade changes the character of the place, turns an intimate villa collection into a fortress. That's the secondary crime here, the loss of trust, the loss of that open, accessible feeling that made the foundation special. Other museums across Italy are watching this case, evaluating their own vulnerabilities, wondering if they're next. Private collections in countryside villas, places that were never designed to be high-security installations, suddenly have to think like banks. And those 3 paintings, Renoir's fish, Cezanne's cherries, Matisse's odalisque, they're out there somewhere, waiting to be recovered, waiting to be ransomed, waiting for the thieves to make a mistake. Because they always make a mistake. Maybe they try to sell them too soon. Maybe they talk to the wrong person. Maybe someone involved in the heist gets arrested for something else and trades information. Maybe the surveillance footage yields a match, or a vehicle gets identified, or a financial transaction raises flags. The investigation is ongoing, which means the story isn't over. It means somewhere, investigators are following leads, building a case, getting closer. 3 minutes to steal 3 masterpieces, but a lifetime looking over your shoulder, wondering when the past catches up. That's the real cost of pulling off the perfect heist. There's no such thing. The paintings are gone, but they're not forgotten. The crime was fast, but justice is patient. And in the end, that's what separates the movies from reality. In Ocean's 11, they get away with it. In the real world, the Cultural Heritage Protection Unit doesn't stop looking. Ever. Those paintings will surface eventually. They always do. And when they do, the 3-minute heist will become a case study in how even the most precisely planned crimes unravel under the weight of their own ambition. The thing about brilliant schemes is that they are seldom brilliant enough, and no matter how clever you are, the house almost always wins. Now, if you enjoyed our show, tap that follow button and 5 stars in our ratings. Catch you next time.
Grep News. Thomas.